Part 1. The alarm systems across Earth's orbital defense network screamed to life at 0400 hours. Something had just appeared at the edge of the solar system. Something big. Captain Jiwoo was pulled from her sleep by the emergency broadcast. She rushed to the bridge of her frigate, still buttoning her uniform. The night crew looked terrified. On the main screen, a massive alien ship drifted into view. It was damaged. Badly damaged. Scorch marks covered its hull and entire sections were torn open to space. They're broadcasting on all frequencies, her communications officer said. It's a distress call. Jiwoo sat in her command chair and listened. The voice that came through was not human. It spoke through a translator, but even the machine could not hide the desperation. Please.
Anyone who can hear this.
We are the Velnar. We are dying. Our worlds burn. Our children are being slaughtered. Please, we beg for help. The message repeated over and over. Jiwoo felt her stomach twist. She had never heard such pure fear in anyone's voice before. Get me UN command, she ordered. Right now. Within 2 hours, the damaged Velnar ship was escorted to Earth's main orbital station. Ambassador Tyel, the last surviving diplomat of his species, was brought before the UN Galactic Council. The chamber was full. Every nation's representative was present. This was humanity's first contact with an alien species asking for military intervention. Tel was tall and thin, with gray skin and large eyes that seemed to hold infinite sadness. He stood before the council and did not waste time with formal greetings. My people are being exterminated, he said. His voice was quiet but clear. The Crothian Empire came to our worlds 3 months ago. They demanded we surrender and become their slaves. We are a peaceful people. We have no weapons, no armies. We tried to negotiate. They responded by destroying our capital city. 20 million dead in the first hour. The council chamber fell silent. President Hana, Earth's elected leader, leaned forward in her seat. She was a woman in her 50s with sharp eyes and gray hair. She had led humanity through difficult times before, but this was different. How many of your people remain? She asked. Tail's hands shook. We had a population of 8 billion across 12 worlds. Now we have less than 2 billion. The Crothians are methodical. They destroy one planet at a time. They want us to watch. They want us to feel terror before they kill us. Admiral Daewon stood up. He was a career military officer with decades of experience. His face was hard and angry. Show us what we're dealing with. Tal activated a holographic projector. The council watched in horror as images filled the air above them. Cities burning, civilians running from massive alien warships, orbital bombardments turning entire continents to ash. The Crothians used weapons that were designed to cause maximum suffering. Some devices didn't kill quickly. They made people burn slowly, screaming for hours before death finally came. One representative vomited. Others looked away. But Hana watched everything. She needed to see the truth. Why come to us? She asked. We're newcomers to the galaxy. We only achieved faster than light travel 10 years ago. Because you are the only species that might help, Tel said. I went to the Confederation of Advanced Worlds first. They expressed sympathy. Then they closed their borders. They said the Crothians are too powerful to fight. They said my people's extinction is regrettable but inevitable. His voice broke. You are my last hope. Humanity has a reputation. You survived a nuclear age. You rebuilt from disasters that would have ended other species. You don't give up easily. General Bo Young spoke next. She was the commander of Earth's ground forces. A woman known for her tactical brilliance and cold realism. What you're asking is for humanity to go to war against an empire we know nothing about. An empire that has the military power to destroy entire civilizations. Our intelligence on the Crothians is almost zero. I brought everything we have, Tail said. He transmitted data files to the council. Ship specifications, tactical patterns, known fleet positions. It's not much, but it's something. Dr. Sung Min, Earth's leading xenobiologist, studied the data on his tablet. He was a young man who had devoted his life to understanding alien life. He looked up with concern on his face. The Crothian military philosophy is based on overwhelming force and terror. They don't fight battles. They execute species. Their ships are heavily armored but not particularly advanced. They rely on numbers and brutality. How many ships do they have in Velnar space? Admiral Daewon asked. Our last count was 300 warships, Tel said. But more arrive every week. The Admiral frowned. We could mobilize maybe 200 ships in a month. We'd be outnumbered and fighting in unfamiliar territory against an enemy that has been waging war for centuries. Then we vote no, one representative said. It's suicide. It's genocide, another argued back. We can't just watch it happen. The debate continued for hours. Some argued that humanity had no obligation to fight other species' wars. Others said that if humanity didn't stand up against this kind of evil, they would be next eventually. The chamber grew heated with arguments. President Hana finally raised her hand for silence. We need more information before we make any decision. Captain Jiwoo, I'm authorizing a reconnaissance mission. Take 3 ships into Velnar space. Use stealth technology. Get eyes on the situation. We need to know exactly what we're facing. Jiwoo stood and saluted. Yes, Madam President. Ambassador Tail, Hana continued. You'll remain here as our guest while we investigate. I promise you that we will give your request serious consideration. Tail bowed deeply. Thank you. That is more than anyone else has offered. As the council chamber emptied, Admiral Daewon approached President Hana. They spoke quietly while others filed out. You're considering this seriously, he said. It was not a question. I watched those images, Hana replied. I saw children burning. If we do nothing, we're saying that kind of horror is acceptable as long as it's not happening to us. We could lose. Badly. We could. But Tail is right about one thing. Humanity doesn't give up easily. And we've never been good at watching injustice happen without doing something about it. Even when doing something might get millions of us killed, Hana looked out at Earth through the station's windows. The planet was beautiful from orbit, peaceful, safe, for now. I'm not sending humanity to war lightly, she said, but I need to know if we can win. That's why Jiwoo is going. If she comes back and tells me it's hopeless, we'll have to live with letting the Velnar die. But if there's even a chance we can stop this, she trailed off. Daewon nodded slowly. If we do this, it won't be a small operation. It'll be total war. The Crothians won't accept a limited defeat. We'll have to destroy their ability to wage war completely. I know. That's what keeps me awake at night. 3 days later, the UNSS Defiant and 3 escort ships left Earth orbit. Captain Jiwoo sat in her command chair and looked at the stars ahead. Her crew was nervous. They were flying toward an active war zone to spy on an empire that had already killed billions. Stealth systems online, her tactical officer reported. We're invisible to long-range sensors. Good, Jiwoo said. Let's go see what we're really dealing with. Set course for Velnar space. Maximum speed. The ships jumped to faster-than-light travel, disappearing into the dark. Behind them, Earth prepared for the possibility of war. Factories began converting to military production. Shipyards started construction on new warships. Scientists worked on weapons that might penetrate Crothian armor. And in the UN headquarters, President Hana stared at a message that had just arrived. It was from the Crothian Empire, transmitted to all known species in the galaxy. The message was simple and brutal. The Velnar have 30 days to surrender completely. If they do not, we will eliminate every single member of their species from existence. This is not a negotiation. This is a promise. Any species that interferes will face the same fate. Hana read the message 3 times. Then she called an emergency meeting of her military commanders. Humanity had a decision to make and time was running out. Part 2. The UNSS Defiant dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the Velnar home system. Captain Jiwoo immediately knew something was terribly wrong. The debris field stretched for thousands of kilometers in every direction. What am I looking at? She asked quietly. Lieutenant Kyung-soo worked his tactical console with shaking hands. He was young, only 25, and this was his first real mission. Captain, I'm reading the remains of approximately 200 ships. Based on the hull signatures, they're all Velnar. Jiwoo felt her blood run cold. Their entire defense fleet. Yes, ma'am. They didn't stand a chance. The Defiant moved slowly through the graveyard of ships. The escort vessels followed close behind, their stealth fields keeping them hidden from enemy sensors. Jiwoo watched the debris drift past her view screen. She saw sections of hull with Velnar writing still visible. She saw escape pods that had been deliberately destroyed. The Crothians had made sure there were no survivors. Ensign Yon, the science officer, was monitoring communications. She was a brilliant woman fresh out of the academy, but her face was pale with shock. Captain, I'm intercepting Crothian military transmissions. They're not even encrypting them. It's like they want people to hear. Put it through, Jiwoo ordered. The bridge speakers crackled to life with an alien voice. The translation was rough, but the meaning was clear enough. Sector Gamma cleared. All inferior life forms eliminated. Moving to Sector Delta. Command confirms cleansing protocols. No prisoners, no mercy. The Crothian Empire does not tolerate weakness. Jiwoo's hands gripped the armrests of her chair. They're not even calling them enemies. They're calling them inferior life forms. Ma'am, Kyung-soo said, I'm reading multiple Crothian ships ahead, at least 50 in close orbit around the third planet. That's Velnar Prime, their homeworld. Take us in closer. Stay in the debris field. Use the wreckage as cover. The Defiant crept forward. As they got closer, the situation became clearer. The Crothian fleet formed a blockade around the planet. Their ships were massive, dark, and covered with weapons. They looked like they were built specifically to cause terror. Sharp edges, red lighting. Even the shape of them suggested violence. Jan gasped. Oh no. Captain, they're bombarding the surface. Jiwoo watched in horror as the Crothian ships fired on the planet below. The weapons were not designed for military targets. They were hitting cities. The thermal reading showed entire regions burning. Millions of people were dying while she watched. Record everything, she ordered. Earth needs to see this. Kyung-soo was analyzing the Crothian ships. Their armor is incredibly thick. Standard railguns would barely scratch them. But the ships are slow. They rely on armor instead of speed. And their weapon systems are old designs. Powerful but predictable. They've never needed to innovate, Jiwoo said quietly. When you can just overwhelm your enemies with size and numbers, you don't need to be clever. Yeon was going through intercepted data. Her eyes went wide. Captain, I found something. The Crothians use biological weapons. They have devices that target specific DNA sequences. They can design a weapon that only kills one species and leaves everyone else untouched. They want to exterminate species without damaging the worlds they're taking over. Jiwoo realized. They're not just conquerors. They're exterminators. Ma'am, we need to get closer to that lead ship, Kyung-soo said. If I can get detailed scans of their command vessel, our engineers might find weaknesses. Jiwoo knew it was dangerous. But they had come this far. Earth needed detailed intelligence if they were going to fight these monsters. Helm, take us to within 1,000 kilometers of that dreadnought. Nice and slow. The Defiant moved through space like a ghost. The stealth field kept them invisible, but it was not perfect. If the Crothians scanned in exactly the right place at the right time, they would be detected. They got close enough to see individual details on the Crothian command ship. It was enormous, at least 5 kilometers long. The hull was covered in weapons batteries and armor plating. It looked unstoppable. But Kyung-soo noticed something. Captain, look at their engine configuration. The power output is massive, but the cooling system is exposed. If you could get through their armor, one good hit to those cooling vents would cause a reactor cascade. They protect themselves with armor. But they've never fought an enemy smart enough to find weak spots, Jiwoo said. She smiled grimly. They're used to fighting species that have already given up hope. That's when the alarm went off. Stealth field failing. The engineer shouted. Something's wrong with the generator. Yeon checked her console in a panic. They're scanning us. They know we're here. The Crothian ships all turned toward them at once. Jiwoo saw weapon systems powering up across dozens of warships. All ships emergency jump. Get us out of here now. The Defiant's engines screamed to life. The escort ships followed, breaking from cover and running for their lives. Behind them, the Crothian fleet opened fire. Energy beams and missiles filled the space where they had just been. Jump drive charging, the helm officer yelled. 30 seconds. We don't have 30 seconds. Jiwoo shouted back. Evasive maneuvers. The Defiant twisted and turned, dodging weapons fire. One of the escort ships was not fast enough. A Crothian energy beam punched through its shields and cut the ship in half. 20 crew members died instantly. Jump drive at 80%. Another escort ship exploded as multiple missiles hit it at once. The Defiant shook as debris pelted its hull. Come on, Jiwoo whispered. Jump drive ready. Do it, reality twisted. The Defiant and its one remaining escort ship vanished from Velnar space and reappeared in empty interstellar space, safe but shaken. Jiwoo sat back in her chair, breathing hard. Her hands were shaking. She had just watched 40 crew members die, but they had the intelligence Earth needed. Damage report, she said quietly. Minor hull damage. Shields are regenerating. We're okay, the engineer reported. And the data? Yeon nodded. We got everything. Full scans of their ships, intercepted communications, tactical patterns, everything. Then those people didn't die for nothing. Jiwoo looked at her surviving crew. Set course for Earth, maximum speed. And someone send a message ahead. Tell them we're coming back, and we're bringing proof that the Crothians need to be stopped. The two ships jumped back toward human space. Behind them, in Velnar space, the Crothian commander known as Wrath Captain Thane studied the sensor logs of the human ships. He was a massive creature, covered in thick scales and cybernetic enhancements. He had led Crothian fleets for 30 years and conquered 17 species. What were those ships? He demanded. Unknown design, Wrath Captain, his tactical officer replied. Small, fast, and equipped with advanced stealth technology. Did they belong to the Confederation? No, sir. The configuration is completely different. We believe they may be from a species called humans. They are a recently discovered species from a system far from here. Thane laughed. It was a harsh, cruel sound. Humans, I have heard of them. A primitive species that only developed faster than light travel a few cycles ago. They sent scouts to watch us? He laughed again. Inform High Command that we may have a new species to cleanse soon. But first we finish the Velnar. He turned back to the view screen showing Velnar Prime burning below. Increase the bombardment. I want this planet lifeless within 10 days. Send a message to the surviving Velnar colonies. Tell them they have 20 days to surrender, or they will share this world's fate. On Earth, 3 days later, Jiwoo stood before the UN Galactic Council and President Hana. The council chamber was packed. Every representative was there. So were the military commanders, scientists, and diplomats. Ambassador Tile sat in the front row, his alien face impossible to read. Jiwoo showed them everything. The destroyed Velnar fleet, the bombardment of their homeworld, the intercepted communications talking about cleansing inferior life forms, the biological weapons designed to commit genocide. The recording of millions dying while she watched. The chamber was absolutely silent when she finished. We lost 2 ships and 40 crew members getting this information, Jiwoo said. But now we know exactly what we're dealing with. The Crothians are not just aggressive. They are exterminators. They don't want territory or resources. They want to eliminate any species they consider weak. And based on their communications, they consider everyone weak. President Hana stood up. Her face was set like stone. Thank you, Captain. You and your crew showed great courage. She looked around the chamber at all the representatives. We came to this council divided. Some wanted to help the Velnar. Others said it was not our problem. I understand both positions. But after seeing this evidence, I know what I believe. Hana's voice grew stronger. The Crothians are committing genocide. They are killing billions of innocent people whose only crime was being unable to defend themselves. If we do nothing, they will continue. The Velnar will be extinct in a month. Then the Crothians will find another species to exterminate. And another. Eventually, they will come for us. But more than that, she continued, we have the power to stop this. We have the technology, the ships, and the soldiers. The question is not whether we can help. The question is whether we will. Admiral Daewon stepped forward. If we do this, there is no halfway. Part 3 Earth transformed overnight. Every factory that could be converted began producing military equipment. Shipyards that had been building civilian transports now constructed warships around the clock. Universities sent their best scientists to weapons research facilities. The entire planet moved with single-minded purpose. In the Military Command Center in Geneva, Admiral Daewon spread holographic star maps across the table. President Hana stood beside him, along with General Bo Young and a dozen other senior commanders. They had been working for 72 hours straight with almost no sleep. This is Operation Thunderstrike, Daewon said, highlighting several systems on the map. Phase 1. We take our fleet directly to Velnar Prime. The Crothians are concentrated there for the final assault on the homeworld. We hit them hard and fast before they know we're coming. General Bo Young frowned at the plan. We'll be outnumbered at least 2 to 1. Maybe worse. Yes, but we have advantages they don't expect. Daewon pulled up ship specifications. Our ships are faster. Our targeting systems are more accurate. And thanks to Captain Jiwoo's reconnaissance, we know their weak points. Dr. Minseok stepped forward. He was a weapons engineer who had not left his laboratory in 3 days. His eyes were red from exhaustion, but his voice was excited. I've designed 3 new weapon systems specifically for Crothian ships. First, kinetic kill vehicles. They're basically telephone poles made of tungsten. fired at relativistic speeds. Their armor won't matter when each projectile hits with the force of a nuclear bomb. He pulled up another design. Second, AI-guided minefields. We scatter thousands of them in the battle space. They sit dormant until Crothian ships pass, then they swarm. One mine alone won't do much damage, but 1,000 hitting simultaneously will overwhelm even their shields. And third? Hana asked. Min Seok smiled. It was not a friendly smile. Electronic warfare packages designed by our best hackers. The Crothians have never faced sophisticated cyber attacks. Their systems are powerful but primitive. We can blind them, confuse them, maybe even take control of some of their systems. Colonel Jaehua entered the room. She was the commander of the Marine Corps, a woman with short-cropped hair and scars on her face from a dozen combat missions. She had been training her forces non-stop since the war declaration. My Marines are ready for boarding operations, she reported. We've studied the Crothian ship layouts from the reconnaissance data. If we can disable their engines, my teams can breach their hulls and fight them ship to ship. Will your people be able to handle Crothian warriors in close combat? Bo Young asked. Jaehua's expression was cold. Crothians are bigger and stronger than humans, but my Marines have been training in combat techniques specifically designed for fighting larger opponents. We know how to use our size as an advantage. We're faster, more flexible, and we're absolutely not afraid of them. Across the room, Intelligence Officer So Young was working at her console. She was thin and quiet, the kind of person who people forgot was in the room. That made her perfect for intelligence work. Admiral, I've successfully penetrated Crothian communication networks, she said without looking up. I've been monitoring their fleet movements and internal communications for the past 6 hours. They have no idea we can listen to everything they say. Excellent work, Day One said. What are they saying? They're bored. They think the Velnar campaign is almost over. They're already discussing which species to exterminate next. Some of them are arguing over who gets the best hunting grounds after the Velnar worlds are cleansed. So Young finally looked up, and her eyes were hard. They talk about genocide the way we talk about work schedules. The room fell silent. Everyone there understood what they were facing. This was not a war over territory or resources. This was a war against an empire that viewed mass murder as routine business. President Hana spoke quietly. How long until the fleet is ready? 15 days, Daewon answered. We can have 200 ships ready for combat operations. The Crothians have 300 ships in Velnar space, Bo Young pointed out. Then we make those 200 count. Daewon looked around the room. Our people need to understand something. We're not going to fight the Crothians the way they expect. We're not going to line up our ships and trade fire like they do with everyone else. We're going to be unpredictable. We're going to be clever. We're going to hit them in ways they've never experienced. Hana nodded slowly. What about our people? Do they understand what we're asking them to do? They do, Daewon said. I've been talking to the ship captains, the Marine commanders, the pilots. Everyone volunteered. They all watched the same evidence we did. They saw what the Crothians are doing. Nobody is fighting because they were ordered to. They're fighting because it's right. In orbit above Earth, the assembled human fleet grew larger every day. Warships fresh from the shipyards joined older vessels pulled from reserve. Fighter squadrons ran training exercises. Marines practiced boarding operations in mock-up ships designed to match Crothian layouts. Sergeant Tae-sung stood in the armory, checking his gear for the 100th time. He was a career Marine who had served for 15 years. He had fought in the Mars Rebellion and the Colony Wars. But this was different. This was bigger than anything humanity had ever attempted. Nervous? Another Marine asked. Tae-sung shook his head. No, determined. I saw the images of what the Crothians did to Velnar Prime. I saw the bodies. The cities turned to ash. If we don't stop them, they'll do that to Earth someday. You really think we can win? I think we have to win. So we will. Across the ship, Specialist Hyjin was meeting with Ambassador Tail. She had been assigned as the human liaison to the Velnar. Her job was to help coordinate between the two species and make sure they understood each other. How many of your people are left? She asked gently. Tail's voice was hollow. Less than 1 billion now. The bombardment of Velnar Prime killed 800 million in the first week. The colony worlds are under attack. Every day we lose more. We're coming, Hyjin promised. In 15 days, the human fleet will arrive in your space. Will it be enough? She wanted to promise him victory. She wanted to say that everything would be fine. But she was honest instead. I don't know. But I know we're going to try with everything we have. Tail touched her hand gently. His alien fingers were cool and dry. You cannot understand what your people have done. Every other species turned away. But humanity looked at our suffering and said no more. Whatever happens, we will never forget that. The days passed quickly. Earth's industrial capacity was pushed to the absolute limit. Factories worked 24 hours a day. Shipyards launched new warships every few hours. Weapons labs developed new technologies at incredible speed. Dr. Min Xiao created a railgun that could fire projectiles at 2% of light speed. The recoil almost tore the first test ship in half, but he fixed the design and made it work. Colonel Jaehua trained her Marines in zero-gravity combat using live ammunition. 3 Marines died in training accidents, but the survivors became the most lethal close combat force humanity had ever created. So Young mapped every single Crothian ship in Velnar space. She knew their patrol routes, their communication protocols, their command structure. She created detailed attack plans targeting specific ships at specific times, but it was not enough. Even with all their preparations, humanity was still outnumbered. The Crothian ships were still bigger and better armored. The odds were not good. Admiral Day Wan called a meeting of all ship captains 3 days before the fleet was scheduled to depart. 200 faces looked at him through holographic displays. These were the men and women who would lead humanity into battle. I'm not going to lie to you, he said. This is going to be the hardest fight humanity has ever faced. We're outnumbered, outgunned, and fighting an enemy that has been winning wars for centuries. Some of you are not going to come home. The faces on the displays did not change. They had all known this already. But we have something the Crothians don't have, Day One continued. We have a reason to fight. They fight because they enjoy killing. We fight because we refuse to let innocent people die when we have the power to save them. They fight for conquest. We fight for justice. He paused, looking at each captain. In 3 days we leave for Velnar space. When we get there, we're going to show the Crothians something they've never seen before. We're going to show them what happens when they threaten people under humanity's protection. We're going to show them that humans don't back down. We don't give up. And we definitely don't let bullies win. The captains saluted as one. We're ready, sir. I know you are. Humanity is ready. On Earth, President Hana gave a final address to the people. Every screen on the planet showed her face. Every radio broadcast carried her words. My fellow humans, she began. In 3 days, our fleet leaves Earth to fight in a war that is not ours. We're going to fight for people who are not human, for worlds we have never seen, against an empire that has done nothing directly to us. Some have asked me why. Why risk human lives for aliens? Why make ourselves a target? I'll tell you why. Because we are human. Because when we see evil happening, we don't turn away. Because genocide is wrong no matter who the victims are. Part 4. The human fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of Velnar Prime System. 200 warships appeared in perfect formation, their weapons powered and shields raised. On the bridge of the flagship UNSS Indomitable, Admiral Day Wan watched the tactical display light up with contacts. Crothian fleet detected, Lieutenant Kyung-soo reported. 312 ships in orbit around Velnar Prime. They're forming up to meet us. They saw us coming, Day Wan said calmly. Good, I want them focused on us. He opened a fleet-wide channel. All ships, this is Admiral Day Wan. Execute Operation Thunderstrike. Show them what humanity can do. The human fleet split into 3 groups. The Crothians had never seen that tactic before. Usually their enemies grouped together for mutual protection. But the human ships broke apart, approaching from different angles. Wrath Captain Thane sat on his command throne aboard the Crothian dreadnought Endless Suffering. He watched the human ships maneuver with contempt. They're splitting their forces. They make our job easier. All ships engage the humans. Destroy them completely. The Crothian fleet surged forward. 300 massive warships, each one a fortress of armor and weapons. They had destroyed entire species with this fleet. They expected the humans to break and run like everyone else did. The human ships did not run. The first Crothian dreadnought opened fire at extreme range. Energy beams lanced across space, powerful enough to cut through mountains. They hit the shields of a human destroyer, and the ship shook from the impact. But the shields held. Return fire, the destroyer's captain ordered. The human railgun spoke. Tungsten projectiles accelerated to 2% of light speed. The Crothian captain saw the projectiles coming and laughed. His armor was meters thick. What could kinetic weapons do against that? The first projectile hit with the force of a small nuclear weapon. The Crothian ship's armor cracked. The second projectile punched through the crack and into the ship's interior. The third projectile hit the already damaged section and tore completely through the ship. The Crothian dreadnought broke in half. Atmosphere vented from both sections as the crew died screaming. Thane stopped laughing. What was that? What kind of weapons are those? Unknown design, Wrath Captain. The kinetic impact is far beyond what our armor can withstand. Then don't let them hit us. All ships evasive maneuvers. But the Crothian ships were slow. They had always relied on armor instead of speed. The human ships danced around them, moving faster than the Crothians could track. The human targeting computers, designed with artificial intelligence, predicted enemy movements and fired where the Crothians would be, not where they were. Another Crothian ship exploded. Then another. Then 3 more in quick succession. This isn't possible, Thane roared. They're primitives. They're supposed to be weak. Captain Jiwoo commanded the UNSS Defiant in the middle of the chaos. She had volunteered to return to Velnar space, and Admiral Daewon had put her in charge of one of the 3 battle groups. Her ships moved like wolves, hitting fast and retreating before the Crothians could respond. Target that cruiser's engines, she ordered. 3-shot burst, maximum power. The Defiant's railguns fired. All 3 projectiles hit the Crothian cruiser's engine section. The cooling systems failed and the reactor began to overheat. The ship went dead in space, unable to move or fight. Perfect, Jiwoo said. Colonel Jaehwa, your target is disabled. Send in the boarding teams. In the hangar bay of the UNSS Warhammer, Colonel Jaehwa and 200 Marines prepared for combat. They wore powered armor designed specifically for fighting larger opponents. The suits multiplied their strength and protected them from vacuum and weapons fire. Listen up, Jaehwa shouted. We're going into that Crothian ship and we're taking it. The Crothians are bigger than us, stronger than us, but we're smarter. We're faster, and we're a whole lot meaner. Remember your training. Aim for joints, use their size against them, and watch each other's backs. Sergeant Tae-sung checked his rifle one last time. He had fought in wars before, but never against aliens. Never against an enemy that enjoyed genocide. Ready, Colonel? Then let's go show them why you don't mess with humanity. The boarding craft launched from the Warhammer and crossed the space between ships in seconds. They latched onto the disabled Crothian cruiser's hull and cut through the armor with plasma torches. Marines poured into the breach. The Crothians were waiting. They were huge creatures, twice the size of humans, covered in scales and cybernetic enhancements. They carried weapons that could tear a human in half. They roared and charged at the Marines. Tae-sung fired his rifle in controlled bursts. The bullets found weak spots in the Crothian armor. One of the aliens fell, but 2 more rushed forward. Tae-sung dodged to the side, using his smaller size to his advantage. A Crothian's massive claw swept past his head. He drove his combat knife into the joint where the alien's leg met its body. The Crothian screamed and collapsed. All around him, Marines fought with brutal efficiency. They didn't fight the way the Crothians expected. They didn't stand and trade blows. They moved. They dodged. They struck weak points and retreated before the enemy could counter. A Crothian warrior grabbed a Marine and lifted him off the ground. Before it could crush him, 3 other Marines shot it in the back. The alien dropped the Marine and fell. Keep moving, Jaehwa shouted. Don't give them time to organize. The Marines pushed deeper into the ship. The Crothians had never faced an enemy like this before. Every species they had fought had broken when faced with Crothian warriors in close combat. But the humans just kept coming. They were smaller, but they fought with a ferocity that shocked the Crothians. In space, the battle continued. Admiral Daewon watched from the Indomitable as his plan unfolded. The Crothian fleet was in disarray. They were used to enemies who fought in predictable patterns. The human fleet was anything but predictable. Release the minefield, he ordered. So Young activated the mines from her station. Thousands of small devices, each one equipped with AI guidance systems, spread across the battle space. They looked harmless at first. The Crothians ignored them, then the mines activated. They swarmed toward the nearest Crothian ships like angry bees. Point defense systems tried to shoot them down. But there were too many. Hundreds of mines hit each ship simultaneously. Individually, they couldn't do much damage. Together, they overwhelmed shields and tore through armor. A Crothian battleship disappeared in a massive explosion. Then another. The Crothian formation fell apart as ships tried to escape the mine swarms. "Now," Day One commanded. "All ships full assault." The human fleet charged forward. They targeted the Crothian engines, just like Captain Jiwoo had suggested during her reconnaissance mission. The Crothians had designed their ships to be nearly invincible from the front. But the engines were vulnerable. Human ships darted behind the slower Crothian vessels and fired at point-blank range. Engine after engine exploded. Ships that had terrorized the galaxy for decades became floating wrecks. On the endless suffering, Wrath Captain Thane finally understood that he was losing. This can't be happening. "We are Crothian. We have conquered 17 species. The humans are different," his tactical officer said quietly. "They don't fight like anyone we've faced before. Then we adapt. Target their command ship. If we kill their admiral, their fleet will fall apart." The endless suffering and 20 other Crothian ships focused all their fire on the Indomitable. Energy beams and missiles converged on the human flagship. The shields held for a few seconds, then failed. The armor began to melt. "Hull breach on decks 7 through 12, someone shouted. "Shields are down." Daewon gripped his chair. "All power to forward shields. Continue firing. Admiral, we need to retreat." "No. If we break now, the Crothians will think they're winning. We hold the line." The Indomitable shook as more weapons fire hit it. But the ship's railguns never stopped firing. Each shot found a target. Each target died. Captain Jiwoo saw the Indomitable in trouble. "All ships in Battle Group 2 with me. We're saving the Admiral." 30 human ships broke from their current engagement and rushed to defend the flagship. They positioned themselves between the Indomitable and the Crothian attackers. Taking the weapons fire meant for Daewon. "Fire everything," Jiwoo commanded. The combined firepower of 30 ships hit the Crothians at once. The endless suffering's shields overloaded. Its armor cracked. Jiwoo saw the opening and took it. "Target their bridge. Maximum power." The Defiant's main railgun fired. The projectile crossed the distance in less than a second and punched through the endless suffering's bridge. Wrath Captain Thane had just enough time to realize what was happening before the kinetic energy turned everything on the bridge into plasma. The Crothian flagship exploded. Without their commander, the Crothian fleet began to panic. They had never lost a battle before. They didn't know what to do. "They're breaking," Kyung-soo reported. "The Crothian fleet is retreating." "Don't let them get away," Daewon ordered. "Pursue and destroy. We end this here." The human fleet chased the fleeing Crothians. It was not a battle anymore. It was a massacre. One by one, the Crothian ships were destroyed. Some tried to surrender. The humans accepted their surrender and took prisoners. Part 5, The Emergency. Session of Earth's leadership took place 48 hours after the Battle of Velnar, Prime. President Hana stood before the council with Admiral Daewon, appearing through holographic communication from his flagship. The debate had been going for 3 hours, and voices were getting louder. "We saved the Velnar," one representative argued. "That was our mission. We should bring our fleet home before we lose more people." General Bo Young stood up. She had been quiet until now, but her voice cut through the argument like a knife. "If we stop now, the Crothians will rebuild their fleet and come back. Maybe not this year or next year, but they will come back. And next time, they'll be ready for us. Next time, it won't just be the Velnar dying. It will be us too." "She's right," Admiral Daewon said from the holographic display. "I've been interrogating Crothian prisoners. The Empire has been conquering species for over 200 years. They have hundreds of worlds, thousands of ships. The fleet we destroyed at Velnar Prime was just one battle group. If we don't finish this war now while we have momentum, we'll regret it." President Hana raised her hand for silence. "I watched billions die while we debated whether to help. I won't make that mistake again. The Crothian Empire is built on genocide and slavery. As long as it exists, innocent people will suffer. We have the power to end it. So we will." She looked at each representative. "I'm authorizing Operation Final Justice. Admiral Daewon will take our combined fleet to the Crothian homeworld. The Empire will surrender unconditionally or face complete military defeat. We're finishing this war." The vote was close, but it passed. Humanity was committed to total war. In Velnar space, the human fleet was being reinforced. 300 more warships arrived from Earth, along with support vessels, medical ships, and supply transports. But something else arrived too. Ships from other species. Captain Jiwoo watched in amazement as alien vessels appeared in the system. She recognized some of them from the intelligence reports. There were ships from the Terran Collective, the Miran Confederacy, and a dozen other species. They were small fleets, but they were there. "We're receiving a transmission from the lead Terran vessel," her communications officer said. A holographic image appeared showing a tall, crystalline being. "I am Commander Veltara of the Terran Collective. We heard what humanity did here. You fought the Crothians and won. You saved a species from extinction when everyone else turned away. The Terrans wish to join your cause." Jiwoo was stunned. "You want to fight alongside us? The Crothians destroyed one of our colony worlds 15 years ago. We didn't have the strength to fight back. But now, seeing what humans can do, we have hope. If you're going to end the Crothian Empire, we want to help." Similar messages came from the other species. Each one had lost people to Crothian aggression. Each one wanted revenge but had been too afraid to fight alone. Now, seeing humanity win, they found their courage. Admiral Daewon addressed the combined fleet from the bridge of the Indomitable. Over 500 ships now carried the flag of the anti-Crothian coalition. 50,000 humans and 20,000 aliens from a dozen species. "I won't pretend this will be easy," Daewon said. "The Crothian homeworld is heavily defended. Intelligence reports say they have at least 600 warships protecting it, plus orbital defense platforms and planetary shields. They've had time to prepare for us. They know we're coming." He paused, looking at the faces watching him from hundreds of ships. But they made a mistake. They thought genocide would go unchallenged. They thought being cruel and strong was enough. They never imagined that different species could work together. They never imagined that someone would actually fight for justice instead of just talking about it. "We're going to show them they were wrong. We're going to their homeworld. We're going to end their empire, and we're going to make sure the galaxy knows that evil like theirs will not be tolerated, not while humanity draws breath." The fleet jumped to faster-than-light travel. The journey to Crothian space would take 2 weeks. During that time, the ships moved through systems that the Crothians had conquered. And at each one, they stopped. At the Brelan system, they found a species enslaved by the Crothians. The humans and their allies destroyed the small Crothian garrison and freed the Brelans. The grateful aliens joined the fleet. At the Korth Minor system, they discovered a forced labor camp where prisoners were worked to death mining rare materials. Colonel Jaehua led Marines to liberate the camp. 10,000 prisoners from 6 different species were freed. Many were too weak to fight, but they provided intelligence about Crothian defenses. Word spread ahead of the fleet. The Crothian Empire began to panic. Species they had thought conquered forever were rising up. Systems they had controlled for decades were rebelling. The news that a human fleet was coming toward the homeworld terrified them. In the Crothian capital city, the High Council met in emergency session. The Emperor, an ancient being covered in scars from 100 battles, sat on his throne and listened to reports of disaster after disaster. "The human fleet grows larger every day," one advisor reported. "They've liberated 17 of our systems. The slaves are rebelling. Our occupation forces are being overwhelmed." "How is this possible?" the Emperor demanded. "We are Crothian. We have ruled the galaxy for 2 centuries. The humans fight differently than anyone we've faced before. They're unpredictable. They use tactics we've never seen. And they've united other species against us. We're not just fighting humans anymore. We're fighting a coalition." The Emperor stood up. "Then we destroy them all. Send every ship we have to defend the homeworld. Activate all defense platforms. Raise the planetary shields. The humans want to come to Crothia. Let them come. We'll show them what happens when you attack the Empire." 2 weeks after leaving Velnar Prime, the Coalition fleet arrived at the edge of the Crothian home system. Admiral Daewon studied the tactical display. The Crothian defenses were even stronger than intelligence had predicted. 700 warships, hundreds of automated defense platforms, a massive planetary shield protecting the homeworld. "That's a lot of firepower," General Bo Young said quietly. She had come aboard the Indomitable to coordinate ground operations. "Yes, it is," Daewon agreed. "But we have something they don't. We have people fighting for something bigger than themselves." He opened a fleet-wide channel. "All ships, this is Admiral Daewon. Today we end the Crothian Empire. Today we show the galaxy that genocide will not stand. For the Velnar, for the Brelans, for every species the Crothians have hurt. For justice, the fleet moved forward. The Crothians opened fire at extreme range. The space between the 2 fleets filled with energy beams, missiles, and kinetic projectiles. Ships on both sides began to die. The Indomitable shook from multiple impacts. Day 1 held onto his chair. All battle groups execute pattern Delta. Hit them from multiple angles. Don't give them time to concentrate fire. The human ships broke into smaller groups just like at Velnar Prime. But this time the Crothians were ready for it. They had studied the human tactics. They adjusted their formations to counter the human strategy. They learned from last time, Kyung-Soo said grimly. They're adapting. Then we adapt faster, Day 1 replied. So Young, activate the virus. Intelligence officer. So Young had been working on a cyber weapon for weeks. She had studied the Crothian systems captured at Velnar Prime. She had found weaknesses. Now she uploaded her creation into the Crothian network. The virus spread through the Crothian fleet like wildfire. It didn't destroy systems. Instead, it caused chaos. Ship-to-ship communications failed. Targeting computers showed false data. Friend or foe identification systems went haywire. Crothian ships accidentally fired on each other. It's working, So Young said with satisfaction. Their fleet coordination is falling apart. But the Crothians had numbers. Even in chaos, 700 ships was still a massive force. The battle was brutal. Human ships died. Allied ships died. But for every ship the coalition lost, they destroyed 2 Crothian vessels. Captain Jiwoo led the Defiant in a desperate attack on a Crothian orbital platform. The station was heavily armed and protected by thick armor. It was destroying human ships with each shot. Get me close, Jiwoo ordered. We're going to board that thing. Captain, that's crazy. I know. Do it anyway. The Defiant dove through heavy fire and latched onto the station's hull. Marines led by Sergeant Tae-sung cut through the armor and entered the station. The fighting inside was vicious. Crothians defended every corridor, every room, but the Marines kept pushing forward. Tae-sung and his team reached the station's reactor core. He placed demolition charges while his squad held off Crothian counterattacks. Charges set. Everyone out. The Marines ran back to their boarding craft. The Defiant pulled away from the station just as the charges exploded. The reactor went critical and the entire orbital platform detonated. One less weapon firing at human ships. But there were dozens more platforms. The battle continued for hours. Both sides were exhausted. The space around Crothia was filled with debris and bodies. Admiral Daewon made a decision. All ships concentrate fire on the planetary shield generators. If we can bring down those shields, we can threaten the planet directly.